Okay. I appear to be live. Sweet. Always happy when it works. What's going on? Hello to you, people. Andrew says, hey, Harris, what's going on? I should arrange this better where I don't need to totally look off camera. Let's see if we can change this around a little bit without smashing into the camera. Oh, how's everybody doing? Other Andrew says hi. And yeah, man, here we go. Let's talk a little fantasy in December. John says howdy. Tilton Steam says hello. It's good to be here. Good to talk to you. Good to be quasi awake, a little bit awake. Josh says hey Harris. I imagine the crowds on the podcast get a little lesser. Crowds on YouTube probably get a little lesser, and we'll probably get a little fewer number of people in this particular live stream. But what the heck? Hey, let's keep doing it, right? It's fun. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Talk about your fantasy playoff teams. If you have single position questions, go on over to harrisfootball.com. That will sort of answer all your single position questions. And talk about others. Talk about not football. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm here for you for an hour. It'll be fun. Looking forward to doing it. And I am back in the gym, which is nice. I actually did cardio just now and some squats and stuff because my back was bugging me for a couple weeks there. So I feel like I'm a little happier being back to the gym. So maybe I'll be just so much more wise with the advice. Just so good because of my recuperation. Steven says, hi, I'm dying in trying to choose Fitzpumpkin or Brady. What says Senor Possum? Senor Possum would say, I don't remember who I have ranked higher, to be honest. I think it's probably Brady, but you should check out the ranks. It's certainly close, though. If it's not Brady, then, but I'd say check out harrisfootball.com. But listen, I understand it. I'm definitely not harshing on the question because it feels crazy. It feels like you're taking crazy pills. I don't even know if the Jets secondary being injured is the reason to be considering Fitzpumpkin. It's a good matchup. They're good against the run. They're not very good against the pass. And Brady, I've talked. You're referring to possums, so I think you probably listen to the podcast. And in that, for people who know the podcast, know that I've been talking poop about the Patriots since they were undefeated pretty early on. Just very concerned about what that has looked like, and I don't love Brady even against the Chiefs. I don't love him this week. I don't think I have him in the top 12. I meant him 13 or something, but I get it. Check out those ranks. Andrew says, I've earned buys, thanks. Steven says, hey, Harris, I smashed that like button. I am doing all right, thanks. I have the podcast on now. Nice to see you. Thanks, Steven. Thanks for having the podcast on. Let's see. What do we got? Let's see. Christopher says, I was the first to smash that like button. Diego says, hello and welcome to the Devontae Parker Truther meeting, Mr. Fantasy Reparations. Hey, man, I wasn't the one calling for fantasy reparations. I wasn't the one calling it fantasy. I don't have the skin tone to say that, but that was very funny today. Zeus says, what's up? Have you seen The Irishman? I have seen The Irishman. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I would say probably in my top 10 right now. It's, there people who want to see Goodfellas are going to be like, I was bored, and why is Robert De Niro not exciting to watch? It's sort of what the movie they set out to make was almost the deconstruction of Goodfellas, and I think they did a pretty good job of it. I enjoyed it for sure. Wesley says, is Patrick Laird a league winner? I really hope that you don't really. No, I think no. I think the answer I would have for you would be no. And I don't know anything about Patrick Laird, to be honest. He just looks like a guy. It doesn't look fast. He played a lot over Myles Gaskin last week, but my feeling is how many rushing touchdowns have there been for Dolphins available anyway? It just feels like probably not a league winner. It's possible. Would I have said C.J. Anderson was a league winner last year? I would not have said that. So I can't tell you that I'm 100% sure. Let's see. Steven says, if that is a breed love, you are a person of class and distinction. It's not. This is a, what is it? It's a Ibanez. It's like a 3/4 Ibanez. But it's a nice little knock-around guitar. Very pleased with it. It's fun to play. It is fun to play. I see a lot of running back, this running back or that running back. Honestly, I don't have my ranks memorized. I really don't. I spend hours and hours on them. So if you go to harrisfootball.com, you'll actually see my real opinion. And I know the feeling is, yeah, but you're right there. You're live. You're talking to me right now. Just tell me who you would start. And truthfully, if I had that, especially this time of year, I've been since July 30th, I've probably done 100 podcasts and, close to 100 YouTube shows. And it's all kind of a blur. I really don't have them memorized. So the most accurate assessment of my opinion, it's boring video, but it really is to go single position questions to go to harrisfootball.com. Colby says, hey, daddy. Hey, Colby. Edward says, love your work. Thank you. Let's see. Squats? What are squats? Says Riley. Let's see. Wesley also asks, Pascal. What about Pascal? Zach Pascal, rest of the season with no TY. The issue is I can't sit here with any confidence and tell you anything on a week-by-week basis, anything concrete about wide receivers 20 through 60. That's the NFL right now. It's very, very frustrating. It's, anybody who claims that they've got real accurate projections week by week are already crazy. And now that we're in the last gasp where you have to win or go home, I think he's usable. I think he belongs in that neighborhood. I understand. I think, you've seen hopefully on the YouTube channel, I did some work on him. You can go back and check out the actual, what he is as a player. What he is, not the biggest, but pretty big. And not the fastest, but certainly fast enough. And I thought when he had a couple of good games there, I thought we were seeing legit good body control and pretty good hands. And you can see a world where you go, all right, well, he's not a number one long-term in the NFL probably, but could he be a number two? Is he Michael Gallup? Like just Michael Gallup with a worse quarterback in a worse situation where they don't want to be aggressive? He could be. But that's a tough thing to rely on. It's also a tough thing to totally dismiss. I mean, here we all are making these lineups, and we've all got 4 or 5 receivers on our team. We've got to pick 2 or 3, and they're all the same. I mean, hopefully you have one that's not. And the rest, it's very frustrating week by week. And now we don't have the luxury of going, about half the time he's going to be good, about half the time, no, I need it now. And that's the problem, is it's tough to say what Zach Pascal is going to be. Don't hate the matchup. Don't hate anything about it, except I don't like the way Jacoby Brissett has played, and I also think Indy wants to play every game, win by 3, lose by 3, just not super aggressive. But the player himself is worth exploring. Again, league winner probably not, but not a nothing, right? I keep losing my spot here. I'm gonna pick out the good stuff. Diego says Mitch nailed it. He did indeed. CJ says, is James Washington startable? I think James Washington 100% belongs to the same conversation we just had about Zach Pascal and has a good matchup this week. I probably get that much more interested if this Deontay Johnson injury turns into a thing. I haven't sort of read enough for me yet to believe that it is going to. But, you can see I probably have Washington even outside my top 40 receivers for this week, and yet he belongs in a giant group of wide receiver 3s. Where, if I'm going to compare Indianapolis and Pittsburgh, I'm going to say 2 offenses that seem invested in being as conservative as they can possibly be for as long as they can be. Last week, Steeler weapons got the benefit of falling behind to the Browns and wound up, I think at 10-0, they felt like, all right, we can't do this. We have to take a shot. And whereas with Mason Rudolph, he just seemed unwilling usually to take a lot of shots. This kid, Duck Hodges, he threw 4 or 5 deep balls. I think 3 of them to James Washington. 1 of them was interference. 1 of them he caught. He also had a sort of an over a guy touchdown. I like the matchup. I don't like how conservative the offense might be in the matchup. Maybe Arizona can score some points and then kind of force them to come out of their shell a little bit. And if that happens, pretty good chance that Washington is involved. And there's no Juju. I think we're pretty clear that there's no Juju right now. So Again, I wish I could tell you I know for sure these three guys are for sure, and these wide receivers, it's such a total mess. But Washington belongs to that conversation to say, scary downside. The downside is they run it 100 times and throw it 100 times to Jalen Samuels, and the wide receivers aren't that involved because they don't want to. By their nature, with this third string quarterback in a playoff hunt, they sort of just want to do what they have to do to win, to let the defense win it for them. But you can see the world where he's relatively fast and he's made some plays downfield. You can see it where the upside is for sure. Nick says, what news would you need to raise Marlon Mack? I don't think there's any news. I think that's it for me. That rank wound up being me assuming he was going to play. I might have put Naheem Hines in the low 40s or something just to say, okay, maybe there are a few plays where extra plays compared to the way it was before where they lean a little heavier on Hines. It feels to me like this is not – we said it on the podcast, and Nick, I know you listen to the podcast every day. We said it that how high could you really get him? And I think, what Heath said was I think he might have had him ranked, right? I don't think he did. And he said, hey, yeah, you have him around 20. That's probably where I would wind up with him. It'd be hard for me to go higher because of the risk of them messing around. And, the risk is high. They messed around last week, Jonathan Williams. I'm sure in their heart of hearts they like Marlon Mack more, but they also might say, let's give him a week. Let's work him in slowly. There's just to start Marlon Mack, and I'm going to have to start him in one playoff game. You're going to have to just hope because there's a world where there's a hedge, right? There's just a hedge that has to happen in a rank that goes, oh, yeah, there's a world where they just give him 11 touches, and that's it. And if you can convince yourself that's not the case, I can't tell you I'm right about that. I'm not telling you it's what's going to happen. I'm saying it's factoring into his expected value. For sure. Brad has a common question, problem, annoyance, and we all feel it. And I feel embarrassed for having recommended trading for him. Brad says, he's a yacht possum from New Jersey. He's struggling with what to do with Odell Beckham. My only other choices are Gallup and Debo. The T.Y. injury is killing me. Yeah, and it's the same thing where T.Y., that one game back, awesome. You weren't ready to come back, tried to come back, now might be lost for the year. Listen. I mean, you know where the receivers ranks live, and I guess what you're saying is you have Beckham above those guys. It can't be very high, especially above Gallup. It can't be. Debo I have a little bit lower, but I got to imagine I might have Beckham 22 and Gallup 24, and if you're just done, it's fine. I don't know. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but I totally understand why you would be. Good God. I think Heath might have said this on the Wednesday show too. He might have said, against the crummier pass defenses, Beckham has blah, blah, blah. And I go, really? I just don't think that's a thing. I don't think Odell Beckham is somehow not, open in a different way. This offense has not funneled to him, and it's funneled to Landry, and I don't have an explanation. If I just off the top of my head in standard, here's something that might have stuck in my head. You can check me. Honestly, I don't remember the ranks. I might have Landry 16 in standard, Beckham 22, something like that. Landry maybe a little higher than that PPR. It's maddening. Of course, what's on the table with Beckham, of course. But if you played Gallup, it'd be completely understandable to have them that close and just to want no part of it. I get it. Riley says, what are your thoughts on Allen Robinson tonight? I think he's a must start. I hate the quarterback. The quarterback in any given week. Let's face it, if any of us were watching the first game on Thanksgiving for a half and probably most of 3 quarters, if that game had been in Chicago, they would have been getting booed offensively. And the announcers were mocking Trubisky, and we were all having a field day on him on Twitter, and he turned it around in a must situation. He found himself 2 drives, and he got it done against third string undrafted rookie quarterback. But obviously he's capable of doing something, and that's probably what we have to hope for. Robinson himself is a beast. He's a downfield player. He gets open. It's a hard world for me to sit Robinson. He's probably in, and you just hope you get enough Trubisky to make it useful, I think. Who lifts more? Mo says, who lifts more between me and Josh? I mean, as percentage of our body weight, I bet Josh lifts more. He's a little guy. You have to realize cousin Josh is 5'6", 115, 120 pounds. I mean, he's little, but he's jacked. He's strong, like for his size. So I certainly lift more because I'm 190, 190 pounds. So I can certainly, like, just in terms of sheer weight, but in terms of body weight lift, like the percentage of body weight, he would have me beat for sure. Chris says, can I trust James White to go? I think, Chris, I might be misreading this, but I think what you're saying is, can I trust James White to go between 0.9 and 37 points? If that's what you meant, I like the joke. It's very funny. I would say yes. I think somewhere in that. I mean, this is the problem with James White, right? I said this on the podcast to Pat on Monday. I said, is this the moment because of this garbage time production that White had against Houston, bringing them, within a touchdown? It's 3 touchdowns down is when James White decided to get to be open. Is this the moment when now we start having real faith in James White the way we were doing for 6 weeks last year? And Pat was like, no. I couldn't see him, but I could imagine that was his posture and his facial expression. Like, this is the problem. This is the problem with Patriot running backs in general. For me, I have a lot of, let's say, like, plaque buildup of feeling like James White wasn't really used at all. And just because he became the feature back when they were losing by 3 touchdowns, didn't give me a lot of confidence that that's what's going to happen going forward. Now, here's the counter to that. Last year, when Sony Michel was hurt and they needed someone, they turned to White as a fairly quasi-feature back. They would give handoffs to Cordero Patterson and Brandon Bolden, and Rex Burkhead as long as he was healthy, which wasn't very long. But they certainly used White a ton, and that was when the James White for RB1 nonsense was happening, and I was sort of knocking it down the podcast. And the reason that all went away was James White got hurt, and he was still playing, but he just wasn't the same. So he was toughing it out, and then you'll remember in the playoff run they barely used him. And to my way of thinking, they probably learned a little something, and they got Sony Michel healthy, and they said, all right, well, James White is one of the only things that functions in our offense. So let's not lean too heavy on him in these meaningless games where we're blowing out whoever. Instead, let's save him. Could you make the argument that this is what they were saving him for, this run of games? You certainly could. I have no way of knowing that, and it's the Patriots, right? They can change their mind week by week. I would say this: I expect him to be healthier and more of a contributor in the playoffs. Whether that happens this week, I don't know. It's very frustrating, James White. Let's see. Telugu says, talk about tonight's game. Certainly I can. I talked about it at length on the Thursday podcast, so I probably said more smart, interesting things there than I'm capable of just ad-libbing here, but I'll do my best. It feels like we know who the no-brainer starters are. We don't have a lot of choice with Dak. He didn't play well against Buffalo, that's for sure. And Chicago has the kind of defense that can put the kind of pressure. He doesn't have his left guard, tore his ACL. Chicago can put the kind of pressure on him that Buffalo did, and sometimes Dak doesn't react great to pressure, but he's my QB7 for the week, I think. I think you just use him. Zeke, you're using. Cooper. I mean, last time we saw him, he was writhing around on the turf, having gotten his knee beat up, but they say he's fine. I don't know how you get away from using him. As I said, Allen Robinson, I think you use him. And now we're in the land of Michael Gallup, Anthony Miller. Do I use these defenses? I'm pretty sure you're not using Trubisky, and then the Bears running backs, and I think those guys all belong in the question mark. Of the group that I just mentioned, the defense is notwithstanding. The most flex-worthy players would strike me as being Gallup and Dave Montgomery. Hard time for me. Tariq Cohen's playing a lot. Tariq Cohen's playing about as many snaps in a game as David Montgomery. And as I said in the show today, I think they've been averaging about 10 snaps together, where usually Cohen's in the slot. Sometimes it's a 2-back formation. And, Cohen just here's how I'll say. If you're convinced Dallas is up big in this game, you want Tariq Cohen. There are 10 targets out there for him when they're behind. But I'm not necessarily convinced of that. I don't love to predict game flow. I would probably prefer Montgomery. He's no superstar, make people miss kind of running back. He's north-south, has okay acceleration, very good power, maybe a souped-up version of Jordan Howard on a much worse offense than Jordan Howard played on last year. And, I'd probably use him as a flex, and if I didn't have a lot of other choices, I would say the same about Gallup. But Anthony Miller's really interesting, right? Another one where if they're behind, Cohen and Miller could be the right answers because they will then throw intermediate. They will throw short. They'll try to catch up that way. And Miller has had nearly 30 targets the last 3 games. I mean, if you just want to look at numbers, Miller, if you could promise me that work was ahead, even with Trubisky, but boy, just ancillary Trubisky weapons. I have a hard time doing it. And then I think the spread is Cowboys 3, and I'm on Cowboys. I had it at 5 for whatever that's worked. So if you care about such things, I would be on the Cowboys. But thank you for asking. Good way to summarize. CJ says, did you see Knives Out yet? I did, and I really enjoyed it. I think as of right now, that would also be in my top 10. It was probably one of the most fun movies I saw all year, I would say. Really, really fun. There's maybe one part of it that I didn't feel, it's a sort of a murder mystery kind of fun detective thing, and maybe one thing I didn't think held together great, but I really enjoyed it very much. I think he's great. Rian Johnson. I think he's fantastic. Steven says, at any rate, I truly appreciate the work you do. We'll become a person of the book. Well, thank you, Steven. That's really cool. I appreciate it. Let me do a quick break and thank LEESA for sponsoring this show today. If you're thinking about a mattress, I can't show it to you here, but this is the yacht, obviously. This is the main cabin, sort of adjacent living room in the yacht. But right there is where I sleep. And down there is where the Possum sleeps. But I sleep in there. And there's a LEESA mattress in there. It's LEESA.com/ if you use the promo code HarrisTube. So listen, I know sitting here talking to me or hearing me talk, you're not about to go, I do need a mattress. Click, 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 click. I get that. Like a mattress is kind of a big purchase. But let me just say that if and when you get to the point where you're like, the mattress I sleep on is adjectival garbage. I don't sleep well. I wake up sore. It's been 10 years. I need a mattress. You're going to go through a process because it's a major purchase. And I would just request that, having heard me say it a million times, it would stick, that at least make checking out leesa.com part of your thing and use our promo code. That'd be great. HarrisTube. It's the best part about it, honestly, is the fact that you get 3 months to sleep on it. It's a great company. They're a fantastic company. They are unbelievably charitable. Their manufacturing facilities are like ridiculously environmentally friendly as much as they can be. They donate hundreds and thousands of mattresses to new mattresses to shelters to find kids who don't have any place to sleep. Like, they're a pretty great company, but the mattress is really good. I really like it. And I think the best part as a consumer is just mattresses are so personal. And I remember going to a mattress showroom and being like, I sit on 10 of them and be like, maybe this one. And then they take it home and they're like, you got a week, good luck. And if you don't like it, sorry, you got a week. And this way, 3 months, sleep on it with LEESA. And if you don't love it, send it back. So 15% off if and when you do decide. leesa.com. Use the promo code HarrisTube. LEESA sponsors me a ton. They are a big part of why I have a podcast and why we have a YouTube show. And I would love it, at least if the name sticks in your head. All right, let's keep going. Let's see. Brett says, are there, with updates on the Williams brothers in Kansas City, are you feeling any more confident on Darwin Thompson? So, I mean, to this point, we don't think Damian, I don't think we know much about Damian Williams yet. Darrell Williams, we know he's on IR. He's done for the year. Damian Williams, I didn't rank, I don't think, right? I'm pretty sure I didn't rank Damian Williams. Let me make absolutely sure that I didn't rank Damian Williams, so I'm not talking out of my butt. I did not. So I wound up with, I'm looking up the rank for us, 28 Standard League, 28 LaShawn McCoy, and 37 Darwin Thompson. And to me, I don't know that I have much more upward mobility for either one of those guys in the two-headed monster. I talked today when we were talking with Mitch about DraftKings. I did pick McCoy in DraftKings because he's cheap, 4,500, right? He's a deep, if it becomes price, I start to think there's something. But not knowing how the workload goes, assuming McCoy is the default running back, but then assuming that he, Andy Reid has gone yada yada yada. I'm going to use a committee. LaShawn McCoy's old. I'm not going to overwork him. All that stuff. Darwin Thompson's got a chance to work his way in, and listen, we're trying to legislate usage here. I don't know how it's going to go, but there's obviously hedging that needs to happen. There's obviously an expected value of Darwin Thompson touching it 7 times. And if he touches it 7 times and doesn't bust one, it's not going to be very useful. So I think I do prefer McCoy to Thompson. I think of Thompson as being kind of a reach as a flex, but with some clear upside. Any Kansas City running back has a chance to have upside. What are the Patriots? Patriots really good run defense is a tough matchup, but what are the Patriots coming in? And by the way, there have been some running backs who've done work against them, but what are the Patriots coming in trying to defend with the Chiefs? I mean, if the Chiefs want to run it 35 times, the Patriots are like, sign me up. Amazing. Let's do it. What they're planning for is Mahomes. What they're planning for is Hill. What they're planning for is Kelsey. And could there be a chance for a running back to break a big one and or for Hill to get tackled on the one and Thompson to come in and might his way to the end zone? Absolutely. So I think there's upside in any Chief running back, which is kind of why I did pick McCoy in DFS, but I think I do prefer McCoy to Thompson this week until, if you show me a world where Thompson comes in and is playing a ton, not in the fourth quarter of the blowout against the Raiders, that could happen this week, and then I might change my tune. For sure. Let's see. John says, would you stay away from Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley in the same lineup? I have Mixon as well for the flex spot. I don't. It's hard to weigh in unilaterally. I would stay away from Dede Westbrook and Chris Conley in the same lineup, right? By which I mean I don't have like a universal rule that says thou shalt never start 2 receivers from the same team in the same lineup. Like Julio Jones, really good, hard to sit him, right? So you're going to start Julio if he's active, and then now you have to make a decision on Ridley. And there's a world where they both are fine, and there's also a world where they score a ton of points, and you benefit from getting every receiving touchdown, except then Justin Gage scores 4, and they'll get mad. But I think you would say expected value-wise, what you're doing when you're starting 2 receivers from the same team is you're taking the possible spread of results and you're squishing them down a little bit, probably. The expected value probably goes up on the downside because somebody's going to get something, and maybe it gets a little lower on the ceiling unless the Falcons go out and score 50 because one guy scores. That means by definition the other guy didn't score, whereas if you have Mixon and Julio going, there's potential they both score, right? But, in the case of 2 very good receivers in an offense that's capable of being very good, I don't think it's a must stay away. I should have a moratorium on Joe Mixon talk. You guys all know how much I love Joe Mixon. I don't think it's a bad matchup. I think if I were considering this, I might go Mixon, but I also know that I'm always picking Mixon in these things, and then people get mad at me. So if your instinct is to go with both Falcons receivers, it's not a disaster in the way it would be if it were the second and third Jacksonville receivers. Let's see. What do we got? Montega Jada says, a possum idea, a meat thermometer for Tyler Lockett's shin. The show's so stupid. Dale, a keeper question. Any idea where you might rank Kerryon Johnson in the 2020 running back ranks? So I will say this, not that coincidentally, Cousin Josh and I on Friday's podcast are going to do our first round. We're going to do our top 12 as of right now. And Kerryon Johnson's not going to make either list, obviously, but it's been a little bit in my mind. I have to come up with my list. There's a lot. I like his ability quite a bit. But I've always said about Christian McCaffrey, I'm worried he's going to get hurt. Wrong, but I've always said about and wrong so far. And I've always said about Kerryon Johnson, I'm worried he's going to get hurt. That's been righter. And the reason I've always said it with McCaffrey was the usage is freaking off the charts for a dude his size. It's off the charts, and it's been flat out wrong. He's been the best player in fantasy. He's a dominator. That was wrong. The reason I say it is a different reason for Kerryon Johnson. It's not a matter of size. It's a matter of running style. That dude is furious. He's a nasty-ass runner, and when he hits you and he has leverage, you fall down. He is a tough SOB, but it's a lot of contact and it's a lot of high knees and it's a lot of getting hit from the side and continuing to struggle. And, so I think we're just going to have to leaven his rank next year with some injury stuff, so I don't think it's going to be RB1, I would imagine low level RB2 probably. There's going to be a lot of guys in that category where you go, what do I do with this guy? He's probably going to be a platoon. Where does Melvin Gordon land? Does he get back in the first round? Where there's a lot of names, and they always wind up being in platoons, and it's going to be frustrating. Maybe at some point, the Lions may be more incentivized than ever to get maybe Bo Scarborough, right? I don't think Bo Scarborough is good, but like they're probably incented next year with Kerryon Johnson to say, all right, no more workhorse if you ever were one. Now we're going to do a split. Now it's Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, which has worked for Aaron Jones this year because of touchdowns. And frankly, I think Aaron Jones is a pretty darn good player, but that workload for that level of touchdown is tough to maintain. Let's see. Ian says, did you take any speech or voice related classes before podcasting? I didn't. I mean, I was on the air on TV for 8 years at ESPN. I even talked, if anybody heard the show, and my dad came on the show. There was a week when cousin Josh couldn't come on, so my dad came on for like an abbreviated segment, and we talked about my very first appearance on TV for ESPN and how I came home and we cranked it out and watched it on video or whatever it was, and I was embarrassed. It wasn't very good, and I think just I learned by doing, because I had to do right away as soon as I started ESPN. There was a lot of TV work. And I think I just got better at it. If I'm good at all. Montanga Jada says, Mr. Christopher Harris, Mo, Allie, Cox. That's now Mitch's, that's going to be his rosebud. That's going to be the thing I torment him with. I got to try to remember for next week to just introduce him and go, Mo, Allie, Cox. It's sort of doing Howard Cosell, like from when I was a little kid. You probably all weren't even born, but sort of that, yeah. Yuya says, how do you feel about Saquon against the Philly defense? Does it feel risky? The Philly run defense is certainly better than the Philly pass defense, but I don't know that you have a choice. There's risk, sure. There's more risk than we ever would have thought with Barkley because the level of his health is unclear. Who was the color commentator in that game? I think it was Chris Spielman. I think that's right. Was the color commentator in that game, and he sort of made a big production. As soon as Barkley made good runs, it's sort of like the announcer trick of going, "That's a good run, so I'm going to diss what he did last week and say he was hurt." And so he sort of, the theme became, "Wow, Barkley looks like he's back. Wow, Barkley looks like he's back." I don't know. I still think he looked okay even before, but there were runs where I questioned it and there were runs where I thought he looked fine. But probably in the end, we know what kind of player Barkley is. I don't love the offensive line. I don't love the offense. I don't love the quarterback. But I feel like probably he's hurt, and that's really where the real risk is. But I mean, I got him. I'm using him. I don't know how you sit him. Like, it might be risky, but I don't think you got a choice. Craig says, do you trust Robbie Anderson this week? Again, I'm not sure. People tune in, people tune out, but I've talked a lot about receivers to this point, kind of the wide receiver threes, and I call it the melancholy and the infinite wide receiver three sadness. There's like 50 wide receiver threes in the league right now. And does Robbie Anderson belong in that group? Sure. Do I trust him? I mean, I don't see how you can. I don't see how you can trust Sam Darnold. I don't see how you can really, truly trust and feel like, my fantasy, my beating heart is in Robbie Anderson's hands. Here, Robbie, take good care of it. Doesn't mean you don't use him. He belongs to the group of wide receiver threes. We all know Robbie Anderson's deal. His job is to run real fast way down the field, and then every so often, it seems like a couple of times in the past 3 weeks, kind of get open, mysteriously uncovered in the end zone and make a little catch and then jump into the MetLife bleachers. But you can see where I have him ranked, and it's not in a trustable category. It's in with all the other ones, and I think we have reached the point where he and Jamison Crowder now feel kind of equally trustable. We went through that moment where Crowder was such a high volume guy that it felt like that would never end. It's kind of ended. Crowder had a bad drop last week too. Listen, I mean, did anything on the Jets offense look trustable last week? It flat out didn't, obviously. Let's see. Thoughts on, Jonathan says, thoughts on Josh Jacobs, I add parenthetically, the jacked gerbil, as a keeper. My thoughts are, love him. My thoughts are, you'd want to keep him. My thoughts are, spoiler alert for tomorrow's podcast, I think Jacobs is going to be towards the back end of my first round. I was always a big Doug Martin guy. He, to me, is young Doug Martin, hopefully without the discipline issues. He's shorter, and he's, probably never going to be the dude who powers over a linebacker when the linebacker's squared up. He's probably not that guy. Derrick Henry, right, is going to do that. Even Zeke Elliott's going to do that, or Saquon's going to do that. It's probably never going to be Jacobs. But for his, we just had a mixtape about him on the show. Isn't he sturdy? That was funny. Very funny mixtape. Dude is a baller. That's all I can say is for his height, he is quick. He has got great acceleration. He is much more sturdy than you think when you see him. When you see to see them in uniform, I look at like Jalen Richard and Josh Jacobs next to each other, and I go, oh, which one's which? They're kind of the same size. And then I watch them run, and I go, holy moly, who's the little guy who keeps breaking tackles and slashing through traffic and stuff? It's not Jalen Richard. So I'm very positive on Josh Jacobs for sure. Nick says, when are your Dynasty owner ranks coming out? Thanks to that sponsor. They're awesome. Yeah, Dynasty owner. They're not sponsoring this right now, but they're great. The guys are really nice. It's a startup. If people go to dynastyowner.com, so the premise behind it, and they're not paying me to say this, but the premise behind Dynasty Owner is it's going to launch next year, and it's going to be full, like Dynasty leagues where you're keeping everybody. But the idea is you're having to deal with their actual NFL contracts, and you have a salary cap. So you, as a fantasy owner, are going to have incentive to find cheap players to produce because you're not going to be able to afford all superstars. It's a very cool idea. If you go to dynastyowner.com, the game isn't launched. They were in beta this year, but you can sign up on their waiting list, and they're going to have a limited number of leagues. And if you get on the waiting list, I think they're going to offer leagues first come first serve. You don't have to you're not committed to doing it. You don't have to pay anything, but just get on their mailing list. I would do it now. It's going to be cool. I would say that my Dynasty owner ranks are probably not forthcoming anytime soon, but hey, maybe they'll pay me someday, right? Maybe they'll be so big, I'll work for them. Let's see. What do we got? Brent says, speaking of 2020, where would you see Devin Singletary? So and you said for Dynasty, Brett, and I don't really have Dynasty ranks yet. I don't think in terms of Dynasty for a long time because what does it matter what we think until we know where the free agents and the rookies and stuff all land? Dynasty gets affected by that even more than redraft, and redraft gets pretty affected by it. But it's worth asking the question, all right, let's assume Frank Gore is still there because he's 80, but he wants to keep playing. But no, there's more of a split between them. Singletary has impressed me. He's good. He's not Josh Jacobs good, to my way of thinking. Jacobs probably plays with a better offensive line, so maybe I'm being a little unfair. But I think Singletary's going to belong in that low-level RB2 kind of consideration for next year. And then for Dynasty, I don't think he's an RB1, but I can see him getting maybe a little elevated from there just because he's younger than some of the guys in front of him. Let's see. I see. Let's see. Yuya says, you are the 10% of people who get my name right first try without any hesitation. You got it, Yuya. I see some single position questions, and if you have single position questions, really go to harrisfootball.com. That's probably the best place where you can find them. Let's get some likes on this video, by the way. We got like 114 people watching, which is a small group. We usually are like 300 or 400. We have 56 likes. 60 of you just don't like this video or something. I don't know what's up. We could probably get to 100, right? We're at 62 right now. If you're on like your phone, I think if you close the chat, you'll see the like button. But we're at 69 likes. Nice. 69 likes. I like it. Possum water vodka, by the way. It's straight vodka. It's cold, clear, delicious Possum water. We're at 79 likes. I'm into it. 81. Okay. Well, 82. That was a slow little jump. AERWSRF says, when you worked at ESPN, you said to add Joik Bell, help me win my championship. My first one. Thank you. You're very welcome. Deus says, is zero wide receiver the next wild craze? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not, because it sure is nice when you have one of those guys. When you have Michael Thomas and you can go, all right, well, everybody else is a nightmare, but Michael Thomas is 110 catches. We're good. Maybe not. But, who knows? The thing about the crazes is they all die. There's just no such thing as something that works. That's a craze. We're at 88 likes. We're at 89 likes. I think we can get to 100, though. I really do. I'm going to guess we can get to 100. What do you think? Is there a chance? Well, we went back to 88. Someone disliked it. They liked it, and then they went, I don't like this. And then they disliked it. Oh, we're to 92. I like it. 92, 94. Oh, yeah. Here we go. There's a guitar over there. 95. Let's get to 100 likes, and I'll keep going. 100 likes. 100. 94. Somebody unliked it. You're being held hostage. 95 likes. I need 100. I got 96. 97. 100. We did it. 3 people were like, oh, God. All right, fine. I'll do it. All right, let's keep going. Ooh, that's a good question that I don't have an answer to. I'll read it. Steven says, who do you trust, like a resource to trust on offensive line evaluation throughout the season? I don't really have one. Other people are welcome to nominate one here if they got someone they really trust on offensive. I mean, I trust my own general sense of an offensive line when it's going very well or very poorly. So I guess I'll say myself, but in terms of really breaking down, all right, the real problem with the Jaguars offensive line is the right guard is just a mess. Like, I don't have that. I'm just not watching each team with that level of detail. But if other people have ideas about that, willing to see them posted, that would be lovely. Armando says, I'm really considering benching Odell for Devontae Parker. I can't believe I'm saying this. I mean, I think most ranks. I'm sure I'm low. I have Parker. I think I might have Parker ahead of Beckham. Check out my ranks at harrisfootball.com. I think it might be like 21, 22. And I'm going to say I think people are mostly going to say Parker at 21, you're an idiot. He should be number 10. Haven't you seen the game log? And frankly, also, to be fair, haven't you seen last week? Because he was legitimately excellent against the Eagles last week. It wasn't just padding stats at the end of a blowout. I think most people would have Parker way ahead of Beckham, which, again, feels like we're taking crazy pills. But, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Brad says, didn't you have Ross Tucker on for the offensive line? I do for like what we do one shot with Ross to start the season in August. I don't know. Does Ross keep up with an offensive line analysis well on his respective media properties? That might be good. I don't pay attention. And, I don't believe that anybody knows which is why the question was really good, because I don't really believe that anybody knows before the season what offensive lines are going to be good or not. We're all saying the same things. And frankly, people said they thought Cincinnati's offensive line was going to be terrible, and it has been until the last 6 weeks, and it's been actually kind of good. I think a resource that was really tracking the offensive lines, especially filmically the whole way through, not just in the summer, but also throughout, would be really interesting to me for sure. Nick says, I used to believe in Pro Football Focus was reputable until I heard Chris Collinsworth was an owner. I like Chris Collinsworth. I don't know him personally, but I like his analysis. JD says, chances that John Ross picks back up where he left off. I mean, 15%? Like, probably not that high. Certainly no way in the world would I ever consider starting him this week. I got to see it. Because in the interim, Auden Tate has become a thing. And I'm not saying that they're alike at all, because they're completely opposite, right? And I'm not saying Auden Tate's presence immediately means John Ross cannot succeed. Like, that's dumb. But there's just another target there that we think is a good player who that team probably wants to develop. So I would have a really hard time starting Ross this week, not knowing how fast he gets worked back, all that stuff. But could he have a big game and start to earn some trust? I've talked about wide receivers. It feels like this entire hour, and and it's like they all sort of just don't know what's going to happen in any given week. How can we know? Every team is out there with 3 wide receivers, 4 wide receivers, throwing to everybody. It's a 4 wide receiver set, and they're shuttling back and forth 6 of their wide receivers. And then we all get really mad because that kid from Atlanta, who I don't know if I'd ever heard of, on Thanksgiving scores a touchdown. And it wasn't Gage. It was the guy even below Gage on the depth chart. It's like it's so tough to know in any given week. So I don't think I could trust Ross this week. Let's see. Chris says, does Tyler Lockett get back to being Tyler Lockett this week? We had that conversation on the show on Wednesday as well, so I recommend listening to the podcast on Wednesday. I talked with Heath Cummings from CBS about that, and of course, the answer was we don't know what's up. I still have him ranked as a pretty clear starter, and Heath does not. Heath is like, I don't even remember, like number 30 among wide receivers. He just doesn't want any part of it. He's reached the level, which I understand, which I kind of have quasi-reached with Odell Beckham, which is like, okay, now you need to rebuild some trust. Now I don't trust you. This has been enough disappointment. Now you have to prove it. You're going to be on my bench until you – that's where Heath is with him. I'm not quite there. We certainly can draw a straight line between the meat thermometer leg issue that Tyler Lockett had at the end of that – was it the Niners game, I think, where he had a big game but he got hurt at the end. And since then he hasn't produced well, and could we say maybe it's related to that? I just don't know. This is a fancy way of saying I have absolutely no idea, but you can see where I'm ranked. I'm probably starting them. Let's see. Somebody's bump to run. You're asking again and again. Can you give us an updated rank for Benny Snell and half point per reception? Well, I don't have half point per reception ranks, but I do have full point per reception ranks and PPR ranks, and there's nothing to update because I never had James Conner ranked. So if you go to harrisfootball.com, that is my current thinking on Benny Snell. I truly don't remember what it was because I don't have my ranks memorized. And it doesn't make for good video for me to be the one to look at the website. So if you look and you can kind of like figure out where I have him in PPR and where I have him in standard, and you kind of average them, that's about where I would have him in half point per reception. Hulk versus Spawn says, how's Sterling Shepard going to do with Eli back? I just don't, again, we're talking about all these wide receivers that there's no way to know what they're going to do. I mean, nobody, unless they are in the coaching room, no matter who I brought in here to sit next to me and talk about the Giants receiving core, would have any idea between Darius Slayton, who's looked good and we've liked, Sterling Shepard, who scored a touchdown last week, and Golden Tate, who's apparently going to return from the concussion. How is it going to work out? Is somebody going to get accentuated over the others? Does Eli affect that? I have no idea. Nobody could possibly know that, which is why if you look at my receiver ranks, you're going to see the Giants receivers all bunched at number 40 or 42 or something, despite the fact that we just saw the Dolphins completely eviscerate the Eagle pass defense. I just feel like, of course, can anyone in the wide receiver ranks from 20 to 60 get fed and get a huge game? That's the point. That's why it's so maddening. There's just no knowing. I can't tell you. And if somebody's on a podcast or a YouTube channel going, I know exactly what's going to happen, I guess I don't believe them. I don't think it's true. That's what's frustrating. I've been doing this for 15 years professionally and a lot longer than that. And this is as hard as it's ever been with wide receivers because there are so many wide receivers on the field and, on every play practically. It's just really tough to know in any given week. Like the Ravens are the one team who have this really simple methodology. It's either Marquise Brown or it's nobody. They only play 2 receivers at a time, and they rotate the other one in, and there's really no other team that does that. It is frustrating. Brad says, are the Yacht Possum's hamstrings made of silly string and sadness? No. I mean, he is a tough little possum. No, he doesn't have a lot of muscle pulls. He did have the broken paw. He says he fell down the stairs, and of course, I suspect that his backers, his financiers in his distillery in Kentucky, may have He might have missed a payment. He wouldn't say, but he took a trip to Vegas, came back with his paw in his sling, and that's my guess. Is that what happened? But he says it was an escalator, stair, or something. But no, hamstrings are good. Soft tissue is good. No problem. Let's see. Steve says, thoughts on David Blau against the Vikings this week, but actually I'm nervous about Kenny Golladay. That's what I care more about. I mean, my thoughts are, I think I did them on the show. I have a podcast. Does everybody who watches the YouTube channel know that I have a podcast? I talked about Golladay, the Wednesday podcast. A lot of these names came up in our conversations, and I don't have Kenny Golladay as high as I was ranking him when Matthew Stafford was the quarterback. That's just a fact. And I know people will look at the game log and say, well, are you crazy? He just went for 160 yards and a touchdown or whatever it was on Thanksgiving. And I say, did you watch that game? Because the touchdown was Kenny Golladay completely uncovered against the blown coverage against the Bears. And then the second catch, he was wide open in the center of the field against a zone. Throws that I could have made. I'm fairly certain I could have made them, and I'm not good. I'm a lefty, though. So I just, I feel like what the Lions want to do generally is be as conservative as they can be, and then if they get a lucky play like that, awesome. I think Golladay starts in a lot of leagues. I don't have him ranked not to start, but and Xavier Rhodes has certainly not been any Prince has not been amazing for NFL life covering receivers these days, but I don't have Golladay as high. You can see where I'm ranked. It's not as high as I normally have him ranked. I have to get rid of somebody because they're an a-hole. There we go. All right. Eric says, Eric. Eric says, what are your playoff quarterback streaming suggestions for a 10-team league? I'm crushing it at every other position. I mean, just look at the ranks. In a 10-team league, you can probably just find your favorite from my quarterback list. In a 12-team league where you're talking, okay, I got to add a quarterback who's, owned in 25% of leagues or fewer or something like that. I did a video on the YouTube channel just last night in which I said Ryan Fitzpatrick and then this week Devlin Hodges. Fitzpatrick's got a dream schedule for 3 weeks. He really does. I don't know if he can throw 8 interceptions in any game. The opponent doesn't matter, but I for sure, what it's got, Jets, Giants, Bengals. It's pretty great. But in a 10-team league, I have to imagine you can do even better than that. So I'd say take a look at the ranks. Is it Jaws? Jaws Whedon says, oh, hi, just got done listening to the podcast. Are you following me? That is true. John says, I'm a lefty too. Ra says, what up, the other C. Harris? Let me get some of that fire possum water. Oh, let's have some possum water. Let's do it. Love it. Let me quickly thank LEESA for sponsoring. I don't need to give the big, long spiel again. Let me just say that if you're thinking about getting a mattress, I sleep on a LEESA mattress every night. I really like it. For the time when you eventually do want to get a mattress, just remember that we have a promo code for LEESA. That's really my only thing. They are a really great company. They're very nice people. They are incredibly charitable. It's like in their DNA. They just won Best for the World because of their environmental practices and their give back practices. I'm a big fan of the company. So if you're in the mode, eventually if you get there for a mattress, LEESA, our promo code's Harris Tube. It'd be lovely if you did so. Let's see what else we got. Paul says, Chris, will you be providing more off-season content this year? I'd like to hear your opinions on the top prospects in the 2020 NFL draft class and more content for Dynasty players. So the podcast, yes. You're probably referring to the YouTube channel. So the podcast changes in January to once per week, and it goes through mid-May. So it'll be once per week. Largely, the content winds up being draft stuff, combine stuff, talking about the prospects with people who know better than I do, college type stuff. There's a lot of that. The YouTube channel, we're still figuring it out. I think there's going to be more off-season content. Not 100% sure it's all going to be me, but that's okay because if we're talking about college stuff, I don't scout. I'm not a professional college scout. Like I can look at film and go, wow, that guy looks fast. But in college, everybody looks fast. In college, everybody who's an NFL player looks like they're a superstar. So I have a hard time. That's not what I'm trained to do, right? I'm better when they get to the NFL, they start playing against NFL players. I'm pretty good, but in college, not great. But the long answer I turned into a long answer is I think there's going to be more. I'm not exactly sure what it is. We're figuring it out right now, but thank you for asking. Let's see. Sam says, why did you decide to have cousin Josh on the podcast? I'm going to assume that's not because you hate him, because I guess you could hate your cousin Josh because he doesn't bring cousin Josh doesn't bring hardcore analysis. He brings attitude and the little bit of a fan, like a knee jerk perspective that I like. But honestly, the real answer is when I worked at ESPN, I would have to drive back and forth to Bristol from Amherst, Mass. It's like an hour and 20-minute drive, and I would go like once a week. There were times when it was twice a week. Oh, that was a nightmare. But once a week, usually towards the end, it was once a week, where I had to drive there, do the TV car wash, sleep overnight, do the TV car wash in the morning, and then drive back. A lot of driving. And I would get him on the phone, and we would talk about fantasy because he'd be done with work or whatever. And he just made me laugh so much. I just would crack up at his takes. So in my mind, I was like, I wasn't probably factoring in that someday I'm going to have cousin Josh on the show. But when I decided to start the show, I was like, it'd be funny. Let's see if this would work. I mean, you have to understand that when I started that podcast, I didn't have any expectations that I'd be living in a yacht. I didn't have any expectations that it would be a big hit. I didn't know that was such a thing. I didn't know you could make money, really. So I was like, well, Josh is awesome, so I like talking to him. Maybe he'd make someone else laugh too. And suffice it to say, he certainly has. Diego says, do you have any interest in Paris Campbell maybe getting a shot to close out the year as a starter? The Beckham comparison in the Almanac has stuck with me through the year. But Diego, I think you just listened to Sharon Mitchell on the podcast talking about him hating his money with Paris Campbell. I mean, is there a chance? Sure, but great, congratulations. You've just joined the universe of nonsense at wide receiver. It just feels like it's why bother torturing ourselves by adding one more name, And I think if in the Almanac the comparison was, wow, you could see the raw material of this guy being incredibly quick and incredibly fast. But at Ohio State, he was essentially used as like a screen machine. He wasn't really running routes. He would float out of the flat. They'd throw him a pass and he'd run 80 yards. So I think I even probably said in the Almanac, God knows I don't remember, but I'm sure I said, he ain't ready to do that now. He's probably not ready to do that for a few years because he's got to learn how to play, but he does have a lot of raw athletic ability for sure. Should I get the guitar out? Should I play Stairway? You guys all want to hear Stairway, right? Again. Don't I always play the beginning of Stairway? Because I only know the very beginning. I'm not going to do that. Ian says, you talk a lot about formations and schemes on the podcast, and I learn a lot, but I would like to deepen my learning. Should I just watch yours and Coleman's videos, or is there any other resource? I think Coleman's videos are great for it. I mean, Brett Coleman, this is. It's called The Film Room. It's a really big channel. He's a friend of mine, really good guy. And he does like one video a week. He's like really closely breaking something down, whereas I'm trying to give you fantasy advice, so it's a little less about football. I'm trying to show you stuff, but I'm not going to say, and look at that, that's what we mean by our rover, or whatever. So I think that's a good one. I don't have a lot. Sam Gold is a friend of mine who's big on YouTube too. Sank says, do you think Odell is going to go to New England? I don't think so. That's an awfully big contract to move. That guitar isn't going to play itself, says Eric. I love strumming chords on my Taylor. I think I have an old Taylor somewhere. How does this go? Repetsky said, Repetsky, sorry. I think it's Ryan, right? On Monday, you mentioned that some Film Don't Lie members are calling you a slow adopter of players and using LeGarrette Blount as an example. In his breakout year, you were so much higher on his ADP that year. It's true, but then I wasn't rating him like number 2, and people were mad about that, I think. Ra says, you don't do game previews? I do game. Well, I don't know what you're talking about, Ra. Sorry. Do I watch the NBA? And if so, what team do I support? We know it must be the Golden State Warriors because of that. No, I mean, I'm from Boston. I don't really watch the NBA until the playoffs. The NBA bores the hell out of me in the regular season. I just don't think the players care. So, yeah, I don't know. Celtics, but I don't care that much. When they're in the playoffs, I'm a total bandwagoneer. Ian says, do you think it's worth rostering a backup quarterback in PPR Superflex? I think it's arguable one way or the other. I don't think there's a definitive policy. It probably would depend on the backup. Like, you're essentially trying to prevent against disaster. But the question is, if it's David Blau, does that really prevent against disaster? And I think I would tend to say maybe not, and maybe I'd be better off finding somebody else to play in Superflex. But I can see the logic. I don't hate it. Can you tell me Snell versus McLaren over a Blues progression? What do I have about for Blues? Snell. Ross says you recap the games, but you don't do game-by-game previews. Yeah, I don't. Honestly, that's largely because, first of all, there's not really a lot of time, and it winds up doing game-by-game previews winds up being so repetitive from week by week. Hey, guys, this week, Anthony Miller might catch a bunch of passes, but I don't know. It winds up being awfully repetitive once you've kind of hammered home what the teams are. I feel like to some degree I've kind of hammered what I think the players are in the reviews that I don't need to go game-by-game preview. So I think maybe it's just a philosophical thing. I can't imagine doing it because I think in the end it'd be like, well, as you heard me say during the game review, I like David Montgomery because he's pretty good at football, and I guess use him in this matchup. Also because you'll remember that I'm deeply skeptical that we know for sure what game flow is going to be, or that we know for sure who's going to win, or that who's going to be ahead, or who's going to be behind, or who's going to be throwing a ton. And I just am deeply skeptical we know that stuff. I think we're better off trying to judge that stuff by talent a little more. Let's see. Why do you rank Josh Jacobs so high this week, even though lately he's been doing bad? I think he had 100 yards rushing last week. I don't think he's been doing bad. I got plus 10 York points from Steven. What else do I know how to play? I know how to play things. How about this is a fun song. I messed it up. Does anybody know that song? Remember the Refreshments? I don't think that's King of the Hill. Although they did the King of the Hill theme song. I think that's right. That song isn't, though. I cannot play Tom Sawyer. That is true. Dave says, next Harris football meetup is open mic night. How about, I bet you know this one. Let's see. How do I play it? I got to remember how to play it, though. How do I play it? I forget. Anybody know? Anybody know? You know what that is, right? Come on now. You must know what that is. It's not Stairway. I can't really sing the lead singer's voice. That's right, Alexis. That's right. It's Friday. We're in love. It's The Cure, right? You all nailed it. You all knew it. It was so obvious you didn't need to say it. All right. Well, Friday the year we fight love, says Alexis. It's Friday year we fight love. All right. I think I'm gotta get going. It is The Cure, said Stephen. That's correct. Correct. Life by the Drops, Zeus. Well done. Living the dream. All right. I'm going to get going. Thank you very much. Alexa says Parasite or The Lighthouse. I would say Parasite. I saw them both. I prefer Parasite. The Lighthouse was a little, even for me, a little too crazy. Let us end on the note of Parasite and the guitar. And how about I'll see you next week. I'll do this again, but I'll be on the podcast tomorrow. And thank you very much for being here. See ya.